often open up. I say, my name's Vivek. It rhymes with cake. It ain't about thee. It isn't about me. It is about thee. The United States is about liberty.
Cringe. But that's practically former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy's middle name at this point. He is a big fan of the Donald Trump J.D. Vance ticket.
It's an observation on this, and being a school teacher, I see a lot of things, but my point on this is people kept talking about, look, Donald Trump is going to put women's lives at risk. That's 100% true. Donald Trump is potentially going to end constitutional liberties that we have, end voting. I do believe all those things are a real possibility, but it gives him way too much power. Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter and shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind. And I thought we just give him way too much credit. And I think one of the things is when you just ratchet down some of the the scariness or whatever and just name it what it is. I got to tell you, Jake, my observation on this is: have you ever seen the guy laugh? That seems very weird to me that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior. And I don't think you call it anything else. It is simply what we're observing.
Meanwhile, Tim Walz, the Dems' nominee for VP, shows what Vivek doesn't: the truth.
You took issue with comments from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She reportedly said, quote, "We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." About that, you said, "These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK." You know, I'm sure, the KKK was responsible for more than a century's worth of horrific lynchings, rapes, murders of Black people. How in any way are the views you're talking about comparable to the views and atrocities committed by the KKK?
What I said is the Grand Wizards of the KKK would be proud of what they would hear her say, because there's nothing more racist than saying that your skin color predicts something about the content of your viewpoints.
You didn't just say they would be proud. You said these are the words of the modern Grand Wizards of the modern KKK.
It is the same spirit. You're right about that, Dana. I think it is the same spirit to say that I can look at you and based on just your skin color, that I know something about the content of your character, that I know something about the content of the viewpoints you're allowed to express. For Ayanna Pressley to tell me that because of my skin color, I can't express my views, that is wrong. It is divisive. It is driving hate in this country. This is dividing our country to a breaking point.
That is a debate that is based on nonviolent discussion. That you just said you're using rhetoric, which she said she's using rhetoric. That's one thing. And another thing is to say that she represents and she is a modern version of a KKK, which, as you know, was dedicated to the subjugation and violence against Black people. How on earth is she a modern Grand Wizard of that kind of organization?
To call him pathetic feels like an understatement. Yet he knows how to dog whistle to his newfound followers and likely presidential hopes beyond the 2024 election.
I keep talking about this idea. You're right. These guys are the anti-freedoms. I grew up in a small town, 400 people, 24 kids in the class, 12 cousins. And I hear J.D. Vance trying to talk about what a small town is. There's one golden rule in a small town. Those of you who are from a small town, mind your own damn business. We don't need it. I don't know who's asking for this crazy stuff that they're pushing. Who's asking to ban birth control? Who's asking to raise the price of insulin? I'm a Legion Club member, and none of the dudes there are asking to cut veterans benefits like Project 2025 does. So look, that's not where folks are at. I represented a rural district. Donald Trump won it by 15 points in 2016 when I won. Those are folks that want a fair shot. We need to point out to this. The reason rural America hurts is because robber barons like these guys have come in there. These are the guys that take money out of our public schools for private schools to give vouchers to people who are already going to private school. They undermine the basic social safety net that makes this country great.
Walz sees the Trumps, the Vances, and the Viveks for who they truly are, which is just a breath of fresh air.
Why do you think there are more race-based violent crimes on the right than on the left? Why is this a little more pervasive, a lot more pervasive on the right?
Well, the fact of the matter is, I think that there's a lot more violence that's also pervasive in parts of the country that supposedly are left-wing voter bases. So I don't think this is a left versus right issue, and I don't think we should try to politicize this through partisan goggles either, Chuck, especially in the wake of a tragedy like this one. The fact is there are more black men dying on the south side of Chicago. The fact of the matter is I do think we have two standards that we're even applying if we're having a conversation about manifestos. We need to get to the root cause of the mental health epidemic, address that.
The man is loathsome. Then again, some saw this coming.
Every college in America has someone that I like to call that guy. Vivek Ramaswamy in college, when we were both freshmen, was famous on campus for his alter ego 20 years ago. And his alter ego was a libertarian rapper that he called Vivek. Like when I think back at our time together at Harvard, Vivek and I wound up taking the same moral philosophy class as freshmen also. And in lecture, I vividly remember, I've been joking about this for 20 years too. In lecture, a lecture class with like hundreds of students in it, Vivek would raise his hand all of the time. He would raise it conspicuously in the shape of a V. Like he
That's
was
even worse. Wow.
shining a bat signal, his own bat signal for terrible libertarian takes. That guy is insanely ambitious, right? He's incredibly image conscious. He cares about how he appears.
Okay.
But he is totally undeterred by how much the people around him are all cringing at how awful and uncomfortable all of this is.
Shout out to Pablo Toure of ESPN and Meadowlark Media, and congrats on his nomination for his show, Pablo Toure Finds Out.
And my question for you is, of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Well, you shouldn't, because I have the most political experience.
Again, they each laid the groundwork for who they are from the yesteryears.
Hi, my name is Tim Walz, and I'm running for Congress here in southern Minnesota for several important reasons. But today I'd like to tell you about one issue that's very personal to me. I am a retired Command Sergeant Major in the Minnesota National Guard, and after years of firing artillery, I sustained severe inner ear damage. Because I have good health insurance provided through my employer, I was able to have surgery on my ear. As my ear healed, my hearing was gradually restored. One morning, several weeks after the surgery, I awoke to a sound I couldn't identify. I asked my wife what I was hearing, and she told me, "Tim, that's your 4-year-old daughter, Hope. You see, Hope wakes up singing every morning," but I had never heard that sound until that day. I'm running for Congress because I believe we as a country have a moral obligation to ensure that every father can hear his daughter sing, that every citizen receives the best care our medical community has to offer. I'm Tim Walz, and I approve this message because I've heard how important healthcare is to everyone.
Hilarious that someone like Kayleigh McEnany would call this guy extreme. He's fighting for things that are given in other countries. Free healthcare. That is not extreme in the slightest. Heck, it should be mandated.
You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you. Because you're an Indian.
She really said this to him on his own show, to his face. It's not unbelievable, but rather believable, considering these are the circles he wishes to be in. Meanwhile,
And there is angst because robber barons like J.D. Vance and Donald Trump gutted the Midwest, told us we didn't do that. They talk about private schools. Where in the heck are you going to find a private school in a town of 400? Those are public schools. Those are great teachers that are out there making a difference and gave us an opportunity to succeed. That angst that J.D. Vance talks about in Hillbilly Elegy, none of my hillbilly cousins went to Yale, and none of them went on to be venture capitalists or whatever. It's not who people really are. So I think that message doesn't resonate. You saw it yesterday. The energy out here exploded. We all broke fundraising records, but that's not what I look at. Door knocks are full. phone banks are full. People are talking about what's possible. We are finally on offense about an America where we're all together. So good. Have Orban down to Florida. The vice president will come out here and stand in a Planned Parenthood. She stands in a Planned Parenthood clinic in St. Paul. That's what people want to see.
Walz takes it to conservatives and calls them out time and time again. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.